Hello and welcome to another video trying to get you the very top grades. Today we're looking at an unexpected theme that you've probably not been taught, which is friendship in Jekyll and Hyde. And there are an astonishing 43 different references to friendship in the novel. You can check this yourself by downloading it free and just doing a word search on it, just control find, and you'll see this. Let's have a look at what's going on. So our first introduction to friendship is when Utterson says, "I incline to Cain's heresy," he used to say quaintly. "I let my brother go to the devil in his own way." So this is really important. Cain is the brother of Abel. They are the sons of Adam and Eve. And Cain is jealous of Abel because he thinks God prefers Abel, which is true. And so he kills his brother. And God discovers this, and instead of killing Cain, he puts a mark on him, he brands his forehead, and sends him out of Eden. Now, what's peculiar about this as a religious story is that God doesn't punish him with death. Instead, he sends him out where there are other human beings, but he will remain friendless because he is marked forever as a murderer. In other words, in Genesis, the first book of the Bible, God's greater punishment than death is to take away a man's friends. And this is what happens in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Stevenson is asking the question, actually, is there anything more important than the friends we choose? So when Enfield reports getting hold of Hyde after he's trampled over the girl, the threat that he uses is, if he had any friends or any credit, we undertook that he should lose them. So the greatest threat they can use with Hyde is to destroy his reputation with a scandal and stop him having any other friends. Next, he uses the word friend ironically. So we all set off, the doctor and the child's father, this is the child who got trampled on, and our friend, which is Hyde, and myself, and passed the rest of the night in my chambers. Although Enfield uses this phrase sarcastically or ironically, Stevenson's going a step further and saying, actually, is Hyde himself our friend because actually he is like us? And this is a profound question that he's asking all the way through the novel. Is Hyde not evil, actually? He's just a symbol of our deepest desires, and Stevenson could be arguing that there's nothing wrong with these desires. Now we can see Utterson's real curiosity about Edward Hyde is actually motivated by jealousy. And so he calls Edward Hyde a friend and benefactor. These are the words that are in Jekyll's will. And these are the words that so upset Utterson because he feels that Stevenson is taking a friend who is better than him. He prefers Hyde to Utterson. And jealousy among friends is very interesting. It's the same jealousy, remember, that Cain had when he killed his brother Abel. The other theme of friendship is about what happens as we age. Friends become more important. And so there's the reference to them being old friends and old mates. So when Utterson goes to Dr. Lanyon, Lanyon is told, "You and I must be the two oldest friends that Henry Jekyll has." In other words, Utterson is really concerned about friendship. Now, if you think about it, he keeps secret Lanyon's apparent suicide, giving up on life. Lanyon's account, Lanyon's letter, is locked into Utterson's safe. And also Henry Jekyll's letter, his account, his confession of everything, is also locked away in his safe. In other words, Utterson's loyalty to both his friends is such that he will break the law. He won't reveal the truth, even to the police, about the murder of Sir Danvers Carew, so that murder can never be solved because Utterson is more loyal to his friends than to justice. Now, when that happens, we have to ask, is Stevenson critical of this? Is he saying that loyalty to friends here is too powerful and it's therefore corrupt and disrupting society? Or is he suggesting that friendship should be this powerful and that we should form these powerful attachments to people who we value just as much, if not more, than our families? When Jekyll is able to suppress Hyde, when he decides that he no longer wants to exist as Hyde and hides him away for a year, he starts holding parties, and at one of them he reflects that the trio, Lanyon, Utterson and Jekyll, were inseparable friends, hence my lovely picture here. The three men are together, united. When Utterson opens up Lanyon's confession, he says, "I've buried one friend today," he thought. "What if this should cost me another?" And he really fears to open up what Lanyon has written in case it breaks Utterson's friendship with Jekyll. And the only reason he opens it is he fears not to open it is disloyal to his friend. So you can see how powerful a desire it is to have friends and keep. Now again we can see Utterson's jealousy at work. This is the dream sequence, you'll remember, where he starts dreaming of his friend Jekyll in bed where his friend lay asleep. And then he imagines Hyde, with this mysterious power over Jekyll, standing at the end of his bed, so that Jekyll, he must rise and do its bidding. And so there's this real jealousy that Hyde is getting Jekyll to do something that he shouldn't. And Utterson is powerless to find out what it is. And then we have this very famous description, "Harry Jekyll, if ever I read Satan's signature upon a face, it is on that of your new friend." Now, the word to focus on here, the word to zoom in on, is the word new, because that conveys his jealousy again, that Jekyll has replaced Utterson in his affections with Hyde. Hyde has become the new, more important friend, and he associates him with Satan. Not just because he looks evil, but because in Utterson's eyes he has committed this evil act of taking his best friend, Jekyll, away from Utterson. Now I need to pause here and tell you something about the teenage brain. So if you find that adults are having a go at you for being a teenager, there's a really fascinating book that you can read by Francis E. Jensen called The Secrets of the Teenage Brain. So one of the things the teenage brain is really concerned with is social connection. Your friends are more important to you as a teenager possibly than at any other time of your life. Now it could be that Stevenson is being critical of this passionate interest in friendship, and he's therefore criticizing Utterson for being so completely obsessed by it. Or we might argue the opposite, that actually Stevenson was profoundly interested in the idea of friendship and did see it as vitally important to life. And in fact, biographically, he did leave Britain to go and live with friends elsewhere and stay with friends out in America and Samoa. So you have the opportunity to argue that Stevenson views Utterson's addiction to friendship, as you like, either as something that marks him out as a weak man, or as his most noble characteristic. It's up to you to decide. Let's have a look at another instance of this friendship. He might see a reason for his friend's strange preference or bondage, call it what you please, and even for the startling clause of the will. So again, this emphasizes his profound friendship with Jekyll, and this use of the word bondage here meaning slavery shows how he's deeply troubled by Jekyll's slavery towards Hyde's friendship. And then when he confronts Hyde and says, "Look, we've got common friends, that's how I know who you are," Hyde replies hoarsely, "Who are they?" Because Hyde knows everything that Jekyll knows, and he therefore knows that Utterson would not be a friend of Hyde. He wouldn't have any friends in common because Jekyll has made sure that Hyde has no friends in common with Jekyll. That's the whole point of creating Hyde, so that he can live an entirely separate life, and Jekyll's pleasures in Hyde's existence cannot be revealed. And this starts to become the true tragedy that Jekyll experiences. His tragedy is not that Hyde becomes a murderer. It happens before that. Hyde is friendless, and therefore Jekyll cannot share these pleasures he enjoys as Hyde with his friends, and so he loses the ability to enjoy being Hyde. we can see that in his confession. Look what he says. To cast it in with Hyde was to die to 1,000 interests and aspirations, and to become, at a blow and forever, despised and friendless. Friendless comes last in this sentence. Friendless comes last in this list of complaints of how awful it is finally to be Hyde. And so we can now see what Jekyll has lost in pursuing his pleasures. He has lost a greater pleasure, the pleasure of friendship. And so this becomes the main theme of the novel. We need our friends. Being with our friends is what gives life meaning. Jekyll continues to reflect on this. He says, yes, I preferred the elderly and discontented doctor surrounded by friends to the light step, leaping impulses and secret pleasures that I had enjoyed in the disguise of Hyde. So growing old with your friends is even more of a pleasure than being young and having a whole life ahead of you, as long as you have your friends with you. And now it's up to you to decide whether this also reflects Stevenson's view, because remember, Stevenson kills Jekyll off. So he could be critical of this man, or he could be looking at Jekyll here with sincere repentance. Jekyll is repenting. He wishes he'd never created Hyde, and it could have grown old and happier, even though still discontented, with his friends. But of course that opportunity has now been lost because he created Hyde and therefore destroyed his own happiness by taking away the possibility of friendship. And so in this reading of the novel, the true tragedy isn't the battle between good and evil. It's actually the battle between aging with our friends or choosing a life without friends. And it's the friendless life that finally leads to Jekyll's death on his own, without anyone around him. And so he's warning his contemporary readers, which to him are the modern reader, he's warning them of the dangers of civilization which has become fractured, where friends have grown less important, where people move to the cities away from their support networks in the countryside, where science and industry allow them to experiment with ever greater things. And the danger is not that you will become evil, but that you will become friendless. So, I hope you have another avenue in which to get the top grades in your GCSEs. If you'd like more, don't forget to subscribe, and see you soon on my channel.